Our objective today is parallel lines cut by a transversal. Definitions. A parallel line are lines in the same plane that never intersect. A transversal is a line intersecting these two lines. So it's a line that's cutting through your two parallel lines. Congruent angles are angles with the same measurement. So if we have angle A is 30 degrees, then angle B is also 30 for them to be congruent. Corresponding angles is any pair of angles that have the same relative position at each intersection where a straight line crosses two others. So in more simple terms, this means if they're in the same location but on a different figure. So think about ears. Your left ear is in the same location as your friend's left ear. It's the same position but two different people. And alternate interior angles are non-adjacent interior angles that lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So they're not beside each other, and they're on opposite sides of that transversal line. Alternate exterior angles are non-adjacent exterior angles, so they're not beside each other on the exterior, that lie on opposite sides of the transversal as well. Same side interior angles are angles that lie on the same side of the transversal between the other two lines. So they're on the same side of that transversal that's cutting your parallel lines. And a conjecture is a conclusion based on something observed. So you are going to be making conjectures throughout this entire unit. So if you look at this picture to help you understand where these things are located. So your two parallel lines are these that go across. They never intersect. My transversal goes straight across and it's cutting through these two lines. All of your exterior angles are ones that are above, so like 1 and 2, or below your parallel lines, 7 and 8. Your interior angles are the ones that fall in between your two parallel lines. So that would be 3 and 4, 5 and 6. BIC number 1. So alternate exterior angles, alternate interior angles, corresponding angles, and vertical angles are all congruent. So if you have two angles that are alternate exterior, those angles have the same measurement. Same for interior, corresponding, and we know from our previous video that vertical angles are also congruent. BIC number 2, same side interior angles are supplementary. So if they are on the same side of the transversal and their interior angles, if we add them together, we're going to get 180 degrees, and that's what makes them supplementary. And all linear pairs are supplementary angles, and we have seen this before. If they are linear pairs, they make a straight line, and a straight line is 180 degrees. So let's look at a parallel line cut by a transversal and identify the angles that are available. So we have two parallel lines, lines R and S, cut by the transversal T. And so this makes angles 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we're first going to look at the alternate exterior angles. So first we need to know that exterior angles are the ones above and below your two parallel lines. So now we have to look at alternate exterior, and those are non-adjacent, so they're not beside each other. And so we have 1, and so alternate, they're on the opposite sides of the transversal and not beside each other. So the opposite of 1 would be 7. So 1 is 1 and 7. And then other exterior, 2. And then the opposite on the other side and not adjacent would be 8. So 2 and 8. Now we're looking at alternate interior. Well, remember, interior are in between the two parallel lines, and alternate means they're not adjacent and they're on opposite sides of this transversal line T. So we have 3, and so then alternate would be 6, excuse me. And then 4 and 5. And alternate exterior angles, that means 1 and 7, these are congruent, and 2 and 8 are congruent. Same for alternate interior. 3 and 6 would be congruent, and 4 and 5 would be congruent. So now we're going to look at our corresponding angles. So our corresponding angles, remember, they're on the same position but different figures. So if we start with 1. Well, 1, the same position for 1, so this is on line R, so that angle would be also angle 5 on the second figure, line S. So we have 1 and 5. Now we also have 4 is in this position on line R. So the same position on line R would be 7 on line S. So 4 and 7. Now we look at 2. 2 is on exterior angle above R, so in the same position for S would be 6. So 2 and 6. And then lastly we have 3, and in that same position is 8. So we have 3 and 8. And corresponding angles are also congruent, so they have the same measurement. So these are all congruent angles as well. So now we look at vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are angles that are opposite each other where two lines cross. So when we look at vertical angles, we're looking at where they are opposite each other. So we have 1 and 4. And then in the other direction, we have 2 and 3. And that's all around line R. So now we look at S. We have 5 and 7. And then opposite each other, we have 6 and 8. And remember, we talked about vertical angles. They're opposite each other, and all vertical angles are also congruent. So when we look at this, alternate exterior, alternate interior, corresponding, and vertical angles all are congruent with each other. So now we're looking at same side interior, so that means they're on the same side of that transversal. And so when we look at those, that means interior is in between these two lines. And so then on the same side of your transversal, the line that's cutting through. So that would be 3 and 5. And then on the other side, you have 4 and 6. And these angles are not congruent, they are supplementary. So that means they add up to 180 degrees. So these are supplementary angles. And lastly is our linear pair. And remember, linear pair are two that are add together, make 180 degrees, so they're supplementary, and they're adjacent, which means they are right beside each other. And we have a lot of these. So we look at this line first. Well, 1 and 2 are adjacent, and they make a straight line, so they're a linear pair. Then below is 3 and 4. So that's going horizontally. We also have to look vertically with the transversal. Well, 1 and 3 are beside each other and make 180 degrees. And so are 2 and 4. Now you have to look at line S as well. And it's the same thing. 5 and 6 are adjacent and add up to 180. So you have 5 and 6. Same with 7 and 8. Now you look vertically, 5 and 8, and 6 and 7. And all linear pairs, as you know, are supplementary because they add up to 180 degrees. So now let's take, oh, that's okay. One of the boards fell. It's all right. We're going to take this and do an application problem. So now we're going to look at and find these missing, actually put value to these angles and find missing ones that we might not know. So we have that angle 2 is 75 degrees. So this is 75 degrees. They want us to know to find angle 6. So angle 6 is located here. Well, these are corresponding angles. Well, corresponding angles, because they're in the same position, but on opposite figures. So if they're the corresponding angles, we know that corresponding angles are congruent. And being congruent, they have the same measurement. So that means that the measurement of angle 6 is also 75 degrees. Now let's look at number 2. Number 2 is a little more complex. We have the measure of angle 3 is 2x plus 1. So let's erase this. And we have 3 to be 2x plus 1. And measure 4 is 4x minus 1. We want to find what the x value represents and then actually find the degrees, the measurements for angles 3 and 4. Well, these two are adjacent angles, so they're right beside each other, and they are supplementary because they're making this straight line. So we know that if we add them together, we should get 180 degrees. So we are going to add 2x plus 1 plus 4x minus 1 to give me a total of 180 degrees. Well, 2x plus 4x is 6x, and 1 minus 1 gives me 0, all to equal 180 degrees. Well, now we just have a one-step equation, so I'm going to divide by 6, and I get x to be 30. That is not the measurements of 3 and 4. That's just what x is. So to find the actual measurement of angle 3 and the measurement of angle 4, you have to plug it back in. So if we plug in here for angle 3, we'd have 2 times 30 plus 1. Well, 2 times 30 gives me 60, plus 1 is 61. So the measurement of angle 3 is 61. Same for angle 4. We would say 4 times 30 minus 1. Well, 4 times 30 is 120, minus 1 is 119. So now we have the measurement of angle 3 and 4. If we wanted to, we always check our answer. If we want to make sure that this is correct, 61 plus 119 is 180 degrees. And that is what they should equal to because they are supplementary angles.